good morning or good afternoon if you're from New Zealand, and thanks for joining us. If you haven't caught up with the news, today's webinar is brought to you by Ignition, a recent and very exciting rebranding of the company that many of you will no doubt remember as Practice Ignition. For those who don't know us, Ignition is the world's first and only client engagement and commerce platform for accountants and bookkeepers. And we're joined today by Wize Mentoring, who you're going to hear more about in just a moment. When you responded to the invite today, you were posed a few questions. We asked you, were you interested in increasing your firm's revenue by selling extra services to your current clients? Truth of the matter is, when you're looking to increase revenue, businesses generally tend to go after the lowest hanging fruit. And for accountants, that tends to mean talking to their existing clients, because finding new clients isn't necessarily all that easy. And with no offense intended, marketing isn't always a strong strength of accountants. And I don't say that nasty. I'm sure there's some of you that are great marketers out there. So the lowest hanging fruit typically ends up meaning selling additional services to your existing clients. And it becomes about leveraging and your existing relationships with your clients, which ultimately should lead to greater cash flow, increased value, and already with the clients that you already have good relationships with. But just how do you engage your clients for more of those services? Well, that's what we're going to discuss today. And on that note, let me start flicking through the slides and do a few introductions. Firstly, myself, for those of you that I haven't met before, David New. I head up the APAC region here at Ignition. And I'm joined today by our guest presenters, Rebecca Mihalic and Ed Chan. I might get them to both introduce themselves rather than me doing the honors. Over to you, Beck.
Thanks, Dave. Hello and welcome to everybody joining us today. I am an accountant, like a lot of the people on the call today. I've been doing this for about 20 years now, and also dabble in some other things, including head of accounting at Ignition. Still not used to that new name. It's going to take me a long time. It's been PI for 8-9 years in my world, so it'll take a while. And in this role, I get to do super fun stuff where I can talk about all the cool things that I do in my business and the way that I've grown it, and I can share it with you. So it's really exciting for me.
Cool. Thanks, Beck. Over to you, Ed.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Rebecca. My name's Ed Chan. I started my practice many years ago, and it's called Chan & Naylor. It's grown to, at the peak of it, grew to about 10 offices with about 160 staff. And I started that from my mum and dad's kitchen table. So it's been a pretty, roller coaster ride. And then I co-founded Wize Mentoring, which and that's been doing very well. So we're in about 47 countries now. And surprisingly, the challenges that accountants have in Australia is not just found in Australia, but it's actually found right around the world.
Cool. I'll get you to tell us a little bit more about Wize Mentoring in a moment, Ed, but just quickly, for the benefit of our attendees today, let me very quickly go through our agenda. And I can tell you that we're going to record this one. We're going to share it with you, so you can drop the pens. You don't have to take notes. We'll make sure that you have a copy of these slides before the day is out, with a little bit of luck. Also, just a caveat there that any advice offered in this webinar is obviously just a recommendation, your decision as to whether you choose to follow it or not. We're going to throw to Ed in a moment and get him to tell us a little bit more about Wize Mentoring. He's had a lot of success in recent years. I'm sure you're going to enjoy his story. We'll then talk to you about why you should sell more services to the same clients. We'll identify what extra services to market to your clients and what clients are ready for those additional services, so how to segment your client base. And we'll then have a Q&A at the end where we unpack things like insightful industry information and the how-to for creating not foolproof plan to increase your firm's revenue. Ed, back to you to tell us a little bit more about Wize Mentoring.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I guess to explain Wize Mentoring a little bit better, it's been 3 years from, we're in 47 countries, about 15 staff now, and people say that that's just been a fantastic success story in such a short period of time, but actually it hasn't. It's been 27 years in the making, because it stemmed from the success I had in in Chan and Naylor, but it took like 20 odd years to get Chan and Naylor to where it was. And as I said, I started Chan and Naylor on my mum and dad's kitchen table, and then it sort of grew from there. And I ended up, hiring an office, and got to a point where I was working over 100 hours a week, and I was completely burnt out. And I looked at, either selling out, selling off the larger clients, bringing a partner. But none of those things would fix the problem. That they were addressing the symptom. Because if I didn't change how I was doing it, if I just went from one industry to another industry, and I saw that in my clients would change industries constantly, because they changed what they did, but they didn't change how they did it. And businesses are predominantly the same. So once I understood how to do it, then it changed Chan and Naylor, and it was no longer a great effort to run it. And I guess I credit a couple of people with that. Michael Gerber he wrote the book called The E-Myth. He taught me people are grinders, are either grinders, minders, or finders, and you need to set up teams to run your business. Another person was Dr. Stephen Covey with his book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He taught me about leadership. Without leadership, you can have the best people in the world, but without leadership, it will all go pear-shaped. And I guess the first person I've talked about him sort of in the middle of it, but a guy called Napoleon Hill, he wrote the book called Think and Grow Rich. And he said the gold was in your own backyard. And at the time when I was at a crossroads, there was a lot of commentators that were saying, oh, get rid of compliance and go and do advisory, and your clients don't appreciate compliance, but they do appreciate you helping them grow their business. So it created a lot of confusion, and so I went around in circles. But when I read that Napoleon Hill's book, it said your gold is in your own backyard. You just got to go looking for it. And in fact, it was. Compliance is what I realized in my practice was that only 10 to 20% of my clients needed the other service like growing their business, but over 80% of them needed to get their compliance done. And it wasn't, everybody had to lodge a tax return. And that was the best business in the world because the government drove the business to your door. And to be truthful, if it wasn't a legal requirement to lodge a tax return, around 80% of my clients probably wouldn't do it, wouldn't bother, paying for our services. But because it is a legal requirement to do it, they do use our services. And I keep saying it's the best business in the world because it's an annuity. It's annuity in nature. It comes in every year. You don't have to go chasing for a new client. Obviously, you want to add new clients to your existing clients, but it's recession-proof. We went through the GFC, the COVID. Our businesses went up, not down. So I realized that not long after that, and I thought, well, why would I want to get out of that and go to a business where the first thing people stop doing in the COVID or a GFC is, the other stuff, but they still have to lodge their tax returns. And then I guess the last couple of people that helped me understand my journey was Warren Buffett and a gentleman called Robert Kiyosaki, and he talked about the four stages of your business life cycle. And the first two is the first one is as an employee when you're learning your craft and learning how to prepare a tax return and a profit and loss statement. And then you progress to being self-employed, which is the second stage. And often people struggle to go from the self-employment to the third stage, which is a business. And a business is made up of people, systems, processes, policies, and leadership. And that's a huge step for a lot of people because we all know how to do the work, but leading people to do the work, that's a different kettle of fish. And then the final stage is turning it from a business into an investment, and that's where Chan and Naylor is at the moment. So it's now an investment to me. I go there once a month for a board meeting. It pays me a passive income. And I'm still engaged because I'm engaged at a board level. So the results are from many years of trying to put this together is, we, at the height of it, as I said, we had 10 offices around Australia, about 160 staff, around 9,000 clients, and a turnover of just under $18 million. And it just worked by itself. I didn't attend any of the offices. They were an investment to me, paying a passive income. So then my very first, people started asking me to help them, to coach them. So Jamie Johns was my very first one. He ran a practice in Ballarat called Sky Accountants.
Yep.
And at the time, he was doing about $1 million. He was working 100 hours a week, and he ended up in hospital for the hours that he was doing. And long story short, he asked me to help him. I helped him, and today he's doing just under 4 mil. He doesn't work in the business anymore. He's like me, a passive income, an investment. He turned it into an investment. And he said to me, Ed, this stuff really works. We really need to get this out to the broader community. And at that stage, I was pretty much retired. And what I've learned is that when you're building teams, you've got to bring in complementary skills, not same skills. And Jamie had a particular skill set that I didn't have, which is documenting everything. So he went ahead and documented everything that we did. And it was around 800 pieces of information, like spreadsheets, tools that's required to run a business, an accounting business. And we documented it all in Wize Mentoring. And so we launched it about 3 years ago, and we've got 15 staff today, and there's in 47 countries with around 125 accounting firms engaging with us. And as I said in the introduction, surprisingly, accountants right around the world have similar issues with accountants in Australia. So so that's the story. Yeah.
Amazing story. Thanks for sharing that with us. Just a reminder to our attendees today, if you have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A box, and I will make sure that we fire them at Ed and Beck, assuming we have time. What I'll do now, though, is I will pass over to, oops, too many buttons going on. Uh-oh, don't want to see that. Try again, slideshow. And we will jump to the next slide. There you go. Over to you, Beck.
Thanks so much, Dave. And an amazing journey, Ed. And you mentioned names of lots of people that I've been following throughout my career as well. So it is nice when you can turn your business into something that you don't have to sit in and work in every single day. And some of that, to get to that place, there's a lot of revenue growth that you need to get to first to make sure that you're comfortable in your business, that you can actually step out and that it functions on its own. And Dave mentioned earlier, of course, that accountants sometimes aren't the best marketers in the world. And we probably don't offer all of the services that we have to all of our clients. There'll be a combination of reasons for that. Sometimes they don't need all of the services, and sometimes we just don't do it. We get really bogged down in our day-to-day doing tax returns, BASs, and other bits and pieces. But if nothing else, the last couple of years have taught us that we can work with our clients more regularly. They want us to work with them more often. All the JobKeeper applications we did and all this grant work, we have huge amounts of value that is outside just producing a tax return and a BAS, although they are absolutely not going anywhere and are our bread and butter. So if you want to have a look at offering additional services to your clients, but you don't know where to start, that's what this webinar is about in these next few slides. So at the moment, most of our new clients come from referrals, and they can either be a proactive ask for you going to your clients and asking for referrals, but often it's not. Often we're just sitting around waiting for clients to drop in our lap, and we don't know where to go for marketing often, and it can be quite expensive. We have to get involved, and sometimes we get it wrong. So that low-hanging fruit of selling existing services to clients that we already have a great relationship with, they trust us. We help them get through the last few years. We've helped them get through their whole entire businesses to date. We keep them compliant. We have a great relationship. So giving them additional services is the easiest win for us. Let's get you to change the slide, Dave.
Sure can. See if I can get it right this time. There we go.
So when you want to start looking at actually doing this, the approach that I've used is creating a client service matrix. So the matrix is quite a simple idea and is more straightforward than you realize once you go through it. It's effectively listing out all of your clients against all of the services that you're offering and identifying which clients take up what services. It can be a time-consuming project if you don't have easy access to your data at the moment, but if you're already an Ignition customer or you want to be in the future, pulling out your client service matrix is actually quite easy. As once you have this matrix and you've identified the services that clients are using and are not using, you can pick some services there that maybe are higher revenue generating for you that you don't have enough clients taking up. This doesn't necessarily need to be advisory services. Maybe it's bookkeeping, or it could be as simple as just making sure everybody every year gets tax planning. There are these different services you can go through your organization and find. And then you can start to reach out to your clients and find out who's interested in taking them up. I will put a caveat on this. Do not offer additional services if you have neither the expertise, the team who can pull it off, or the capacity, because you're just setting yourself up for fail. You need to make sure you have those things in place. Ed, you use a client monetization sheet, which I think is kind of similar. Do you want to talk us through that a little bit?
Yes, it's very similar. It's just the title is a little bit different, but you're absolutely 100% right, Rebecca. Your clients trust you and they know you the best, and the research shows that it's much harder to sell to a new client who don't know you and who don't trust you, because it's what we do is all around trust. And because you've got that trust, it's like McDonald's says, would you like fries with that? So you want to sell extra services to them because you've already got the relationship with them. But to make it successful, you've got to processize it. You've got to put it into a process, and everybody then needs to follow that process. Otherwise, if you just leave it up to your staff to do it, they won't do it for a few reasons. One is that they may not be made up that way in terms of their personality. Their workload is quite a lot at the moment, so they're just trying to get through their workload and get on to the next one and meet their lodgement deadlines and so forth. And so they may not be able to do it, and it fails. It doesn't fail because selling extra services to your clients doesn't work. It fails because the process wasn't put in place. So what we do is, in the monetization sheet, is we identify. Well, firstly, we try to get more referrals, because the referrals are the cheapest way to go. And if you do really well, you want your clients to go out there singing your praises. And the way we do it is that we make sure that we're able to respond to their inquiries or their emails or their phone calls on the same day. And Rebecca and I will probably do another one to show you how to do that, because obviously with a lot of firms, they're just inundated with phone calls and so forth and emails, and just trying to handle that communication traffic is a challenge on its own. But in order to, if you respond very quickly to your clients, then they'll engage with you a lot more. And an example I'd use is that if you're a customer and you're dealing with two businesses, and business A and business B, and business A responds to you very, very quickly, but business B doesn't, they take several days to respond to you. Well, the body language that both of them are giving you is, one is saying, we want your service, and we value we value you as a customer, or even as a prospect. And the other one is saying that I'm just too busy, you're not high on my priority list, I've got other things that I need to do. So if you want to increase your referrals and your word of mouth referrals, which is the best way of increasing your business, is to be accessible to your clients, and getting your team right so that the work is getting done, so that you're not you've got capacity to do this. And then the other thing that we do to get more referrals is through, when we prepare our tax returns, we don't just finish it and send it off to the clients, which is what I see a lot of people do. If it's a small client, we always ring them and explain the results to them verbally or by Zoom. And if it's a large client, then we take them through a tax planning session. And you can call it what you like, but we call it a tax planning and a client approval meeting to take them through the tax planning process that we've taken their business through. And then once they approve it, then we finish it off and send it to them. And this act alone will increase your referrals. There's Dr. Stephen Covey talked about the Paretosis principle, which is the 80-20 rule. And he said that 20% of what you do produces 80% of the results, and 80% of what you do only produces 20% of the results. So in this example here, you could spend 5 hours preparing a tax return. That's the 80% that only produces 20% of results. But because your clients are not aware of what you've done, right, you could have done a fantastic job and the tax return's done perfectly. But because you haven't communicated with your clients about the result and about the tax planning journey that you've gone through, then they don't. The effect on them is only 20%. However, if you picked up the phone and spoke to them for 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes will give you all the value to the client. The client will extremely value that one little act of the phone call, and the effort to do that's only 5 minutes as opposed to 5 hours in preparing a really good product. So
that's a very good point, Ed. That's a very good point. I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry, Ed, but I'm mindful of time, and we've got a question that's just come through that I'd like to pose to Beck very quickly. And that's from Jenny. She's just asked, Beck, given that you're looking to always sell additional services to your clients, how often are you actually engaging your clients? Is that something that you're doing often?
We engage our clients every year, and that engagement process, along with the tax planning process, which is probably one of the easiest upsell items, we do them both at the same time of year, because during the engagement process, it gives you that time to sit down, go through all the services again that you're offering to your clients, and see if there is a way to increase them. However, that process and some of the processes that Ed just went through, that's very much on a one-to-one way to sell your clients. If you find yourself in a situation where you have quite a lot of excess capacity, or you don't have that time available to go out to everybody individually to try and increase your revenue, there are other options, which I'll go through on the next slide. Dave can move on, around how we can actually use one-to-many communications in a better way to tell more of your clients in one hit about these extra services. So we've already used our client matrix to identify clients that aren't taking up the services that you want to sell. And if we focus just for now on, say, it's tax planning. So it's tax planning time very soon. Earlier this year, I think, because of everything that's changed with trusts and our budgets earlier, and we've just got this tumultuous economy at the moment. So we're going to have a look what clients are not taking up tax planning, what clients we've never done tax planning before. We now have this list. If you import this list of email addresses and contact details into your CRM, and if you don't have a client relationship management software at the moment, something as simple as MailChimp, you can just import the email addresses in, and we can build out a campaign that's incredibly professional looking. They even have a free version. It's not expensive and very simple to use. So you can design an email and marketing campaign that goes through what is tax planning, why is it important this year, how much could it cost, what the price range is, all the information that clients need, what the benefits they can get, and send it out in bulk. So this is you doing that first introduction to the service early and across many people. And it's all about communicating. It's communicating to a wide audience all of the advantages that you can provide to them concisely and using the lowest lift that you can on resources. So getting it out. And so you hit send, and I've got the comment in here, wait for the leads to roll in. And some people will be incredibly proactive. They will jump on that and they'll want to come back to you straight away. But the great thing about this technology is it actually tells you, it gives you data back when you send out a campaign. So who opened that email, who didn't open it, who clicked on it multiple times. And if there are particular people that you think will absolutely benefit from this service and need to have it, you can now follow them up one-to-one if they didn't respond. And you'll have that information about whether or not they received the email or opened the email, because we all know some stuff gets stuck in junk every now and then.
That it does.
I'll get you to move on to the next slide. Thanks, Dave.
Done.
So once we've done this, and Ed mentioned this as well, when your clients reach back out to you, have a follow-up plan in place. Be prepared. Don't let them down. You will set yourself up for failure in this if you don't plan out a process and you don't have your team behind you to support you through the process. You need to respond quickly to them and show them value immediately if you want it to become reoccurring revenue that you are able to sell this service to them, whether it's every month, every quarter, every year. If you want to keep them engaged, you need to respond quickly, and we know that. And when you're going through this process, don't forget that every new service should come with a new engagement or an update to your existing engagement. We should never do work without being engaged for our clients. It protects us not only legally if there is any sort of dispute, it also helps us get paid, because we're getting sign off from our clients to make sure that we're actually going to get paid for the work we do. And chances are that your existing engagements are not good enough to capture the additional work. And if you want to drill right down into it, the Tax Practitioner Board practice note around engagements actually requires us to send a new engagement if there is a change to scope. And additional services absolutely fits that requirement of a change to scope. And then the best way to get client engagement is to continue to deliver an exceptional service to your clients.
There you go, Jenny. There's the comprehensive answer to your question.
So what does this all mean? You've got easier growth with clients that don't need to be onboarded. So you don't need to waste any time figuring out who they are, what their businesses are, what they do, introducing them to a client manager. They're already in your firm. The more services you offer to the same clients in your business, or the more services someone takes up, the stickier they are. It's much harder for them to leave the more they need you. If you're only offering them a tax return once a year, that is a lot easier to pick up and move to somebody else. If you're delighting your clients, they will refer more, which Ed talked about earlier. You will get more of the natural organic growth through your client base, because your existing clients will talk about you at the barbecue and down at the pub and rave about the service that you're giving them, and that will help you win more clients on its own. And this process, when you go through it, it will be documented. So it's a rinse and repeat. You can do it again and again every time that you need to fill up capacity, or you have some room to move in the business and you would like to increase your revenue.
Look at that. We've got to Q&A. Ed, we're now going to fire a few questions at you. And what I'll probably ask you, being mindful of time, we'll keep the responses punchy, a couple of minutes perhaps to each question, and that should give us a time then to wrap up, take some Q&A, and end it at 11:45 as we've promised. Sydney time. So I'll throw back to you, Beck, and I'll let you guide the questions with Ed.
Thanks, Dave. So I talked a little bit about tax planning services was the one that I really focused on the most with additional services. But Ed, if you were offering, or when you did this with your own business, started to offer additional services, where did you start with that? What were the things that you looked at mostly to increase beyond just the compliance work?
Yeah, thanks, Beck. Well, obviously, the clients need a lot more services from you, and they might come to you for tax, but they may need bookkeeping services. And the process that we implemented was that we had a monetization sheet. So it's just a big spreadsheet. On the left-hand side was the name of the clients. Then going from left to right was all the different services that you could offer. And we just, whenever we had a one-on-one session, or we did a bulk email to the clients, we would talk about these different services, like obviously tax and accounting, bookkeeping, there's payroll services, auditing, you do BASs, you can do SMSFs, cash flow projections, ASIC services, asset protection, structuring, and on it goes. And as you said, Beck, that it's important that you stay within your area of competence, that you don't try and sell something that you're not particularly good at, and just for the sake of appearing like you're a one-stop shop. So you don't have to sell all of the services. You've just got to sell the ones that you're really, really good at and you're very, very competent at. And the process is so important to get engagement. And whether it's a tax planning session or a structure planning or an asset protection services, then you've got to get the process right. And this is where we use Ignition to do that. We go through a three-step process where there is either an email or a face-to-face opportunity to talk to the clients about the other services, or we do a bulk email to the clients, and then they'll respond with what topic that they're interested in or service that they're interested in, and then we engage them in a three-part sales process, which is, first one is a discovery session. So we do that for free, just to discover whether it is suitable to them. Then we go into a proposal. So we send out a proposal. And then once they've signed a proposal, it comes back and it goes into production. So then whenever we skip one of those steps, we always get into trouble, whether either leaving money on the table or having a complaint because the clients didn't know they were going to get billed for it. But if you use that process, then the results are far, far greater.
Thanks for that, Ed. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is getting your team ready. So I've seen this happen before. It's actually happened at places that I've worked before, where there's this great idea that we're going to go out and do cash flow forecasts and all these really great, exciting things. But we've got a team of maybe, juniors who don't really know what they're doing, or we just think the tech's going to do it all for us. What are some of the things that you have done practically with your team to make sure that they're ready to sell additional services?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. That's a great question. And I think this is the main reason for our success. It's in this slide here. And we don't have a lot of time to cover it in depth, but very quickly is we bring complementary skills together in the team so they complement each other. So we don't expect people who production people to be in the sales side. So we set up a team where it's made up of the client manager. The senior client manager has really good interpersonal skills, so they love talking to the clients. Clients really love talking to them, and that's all they do. So they've got the job to take the client through the discovery session, and then once the proposal comes back, it then goes into a production team. And the production team's headed up by the senior production manager. And they don't do any talking to the clients apart from, just basic follow-up things like missing bank statement 52. Can you send that to me? So we separate out the two teams, but they're working together. And that way you play people in position, so you work with their flow. And if someone enjoys talking to people, it's very easy for them to pick the phone up and talk to the client. But when you have someone who doesn't like talking to people and they just like to do, the work, trying to get them to pick up the phone and talk to the client, it's near impossible. And then if you don't understand where their flow is and you get them to do something that they don't like to do, then not only will you not get the result that you want, but you also might end up losing staff because you're asking them to do things that they're not good at. So getting the team ready is extremely important to see the success. It's not just the success of selling further services, but also the success of getting your existing work out the door and getting the flow happening. So it's a bit like a sporting team. Everyone's got a position in the team and they've all got different skills. So play them in the right position and then you'll get a better outcome.
That's great. I love the analogy around the sport team and it's completely appropriate. That's everyone has a different function in your team. Everyone is good at different things. Everyone wants to do different things. The flexibility that you need to create there is so important to keep engagement in the team as well as with your clients. So when you go through this process, is there anything that you would actually avoid when trying to change your revenue streams that we haven't already gone through? What would you tell accountants not to do?
Okay, so the first thing is you've got to have a sufficient capacity in your team. So we have a capacity planner that we use. That's all, what's offered in the Wize Mentoring. And we put the teams through this capacity plan to make sure that they've got enough capacity. It's not just the capacity of the whole team, but it's also making sure people are in the right seat in the right bus and delivering the right services. So if you run a very flat team where you've only got one person doing everything, then it becomes very, very clunky. And the pushback you'll get is, I don't have time. But if you get people doing, there's salespeople, or I call them the senior client managers, doing the selling or the discovery sessions, and then you get the production people doing the production, then what you get is leverage. So you get 1 + 1 is 5. And what you should avoid doing is to have flat teams where you're expecting the one person to do everything. And you may end up, well, firstly, you won't get the productivity out of that one person. Secondly, is that you might end up pushing that person away because you're expecting them to do things that they're not really good at. So make sure your capacity is there. Otherwise, you'll burn the team out. Make sure that the right people are doing the right kind of work. Otherwise, you'll lose people because they're doing things that they don't want to do or don't like doing. And the last thing is just be persistent with it. If you start the process, just make sure you continue on with the process, and don't just do 1 or 2 here and there and then stop it. So hopefully that's helpful.
That was some great tips. Thanks so much. And the last thing I wanted to get you to talk through, you have 4 ways to grow revenue that I've heard you talk about before, and we've gone through some of that today, focused really primarily on just that increasing revenue from where your existing clients and also referrals. What are the other ways, very briefly, that you can grow revenue? And I'm sure that we'll run some other sessions where we can go into this in a little bit more depth.
Sure, no problem. So obviously the first one is, increase your word of mouth, and some of the things we talked about today, making sure you don't just send out your tax returns to get signed, but you actually talk to the clients. The second way is I talked about your client services matrix, your monetization sheet. So we covered that. The third thing is you need to get a digital marketing service. So your marketing is broken into 2 parts: marketing to existing clients. So you need someone to continue to engage with your client, telling them about the extra services that you're doing, you're providing. And then secondly, you need the digital marketer to be engaging in the wider public. Not many accounting firms do that. I guess for many firms, they've got a lot of work coming through, and they're just trying to get through the work. But if you're able to get the teams right and you're getting through the work, then you need to engage a digital marketer. And then the last one, the fourth one, is acquisitions. So, buying an accounting firm is one of the most profitable way to grow, because I find that when you buy clients, they're quite sticky. They don't jump around. They've been with the one accountant for many years, and you buy, I call them rubber cup clients. You can bounce them on the ground and they don't crack, and they stay around. You can make a few mistakes here and there, but they're quite robust versus often the crystal glass clients where they're high maintenance. And if you've got excess staff in the firm, then instead of your cost of goods sold being around 40%, it can only be, often it could be like 20%. So your bottom line, your net profit is quite high. So a lot of that purchase of those fees goes straight to the bottom line. So we'll do a bit more detail on all those in future podcasts between us. Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, Ed. Thanks for that.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, look, on that note, Ed, thank you. Very much appreciate your input. Don't go anywhere. Hope you can stay with us till the end. So I think there may be a question or two that still comes through. But just for a few minutes, I wanted to talk to you about Ignition, the company that myself and Beck, at least part-time, works for. Because it is a product that can help you with a lot of the things that we've discussed today, and specifically around how you engage your clients and are able to generate additional revenue for them. For those that are new to Ignition, Ignition allows you to automatically generate bespoke engagement letters based on scope of work that you're providing to any one client. It allows you to electronically deliver to your clients beautiful looking e-sign proposals and engagement letters. I'd say our most popular feature is arguably that we automate all of your client payment authorities and your payment collection. And if you happen to be a Xero user, which I know many of you are on the call today, we provide a very streamlined back office with full workflow and invoice automation. So there's no more double handling or manual invoicing. Let me jump ahead a little bit and just tell you a little bit more about us. In fact, I've probably covered most of that already. We provide you with a variety of ready-made proposal templates that are huge time savers. They allow you to simply populate them with services from your service offering library. We have associations now, such as CAANZ, CPA, IPA, where we have engagement letter templates that have become very useful as well and are proving very popular with association members. Options is probably the one that would be most relevant to today's topic. Through the ability to offer multiple options, you're able to allow for extra services to be provided. So think of it as almost 3 different menus that you're providing to your clients, where you can have a range of different service offerings on those variety of options, and hopefully allows you to upsell new services and customize the way that you're packaging your service offerings depending on specific client needs. Some of you may remember us as fixed fee only many years ago. That was certainly where PI started back in the day. I know I said PI, but we were PI back then. We've come a long way, and we now offer totally flexible billing. We cater for fixed price, hourly billing, unit-based billing, and all in the one proposal. So you can combine as many billing frequencies as you like, recurring upfront, on completion, you name it. So it's a very different product to what some of you may remember. And we 100% completely automate your invoicing and accounts receivable from the signed proposal. One feature that was added recently may interest some, and that's multiple signatures. You might have a husband and wife in a family SMSF. You may have multiple directors, so wherever you need to be grabbing multiple signatures, that's proved a very popular signature feature as well, I should say. That was added only recently. And then finally, payments, which I touched on earlier, which is certainly one of the more popular features. There was an article that appeared, I think, a little while back in Accountants Daily, and it talked about accountants being one of the 5 most vulnerable industries when it comes to debtor collection and need to write off bad debts. So hopefully never having to chase an invoice again is something that's very attractive to all of you that are on the call. And if you happen to be a Xero or a QuickBooks Online user, we'll even raise the invoice, automatically reconcile the transaction for you as well, which has proved very attractive. What I might do, thank you for all hanging around, pop those questions in the question box should you have them. I'm going to run a really quick poll here to just ensure that if there's anything further we can do for you, you're in a position for us to get back to you. I'm going to launch the poll right now. We've kept it nice and simple. As far as next steps go, if you would like to learn more about Ignition, please indicate so, and we will get back to you real quickly. If you'd like to talk more to Ed and find out more about Wize Mentoring and the services that they offer, please indicate. And if you'd like some of the webinar resources that we discussed today, tick that box as well. I'll leave that up there for a little while. I can see a number of you ticking the appropriate boxes. So I'll leave that open for just a little bit longer. Were there any questions at all? We've only had the one today. Otherwise, Beck, Ed, any final words that you'd like to share on the subject? No?
Sorry, I
You do?
couldn't find an unmute button for a second. So
happens all the time, Ed. Go for it.
Yeah, so look, thank you for having me on, and hopefully that's been helpful to some of the firms. But I must just say, Ignition allows you to systematize that sales process for us, and it's a very, very helpful tool. So I I can't stress that enough.
Great. Thank you, Ed. We appreciate the support. I'll look on that note. Ed, thanks for joining us today. We are right on Q2, so we've done really well as far as ending on time. I'm going to end that poll in about 10 seconds. So last chance to fill it in if you haven't already. And Beck, as always, you are our webinar superstar. We use you almost weekly. Thank you for agreeing to run yet another one for us.
Not a problem. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Have a great weekend all, and stay safe. Thanks very much for joining us. Cheers.
Bye.